Tonight I've got a story for you that hits right in the chest. A tale so full of courage and quiet rebellion, it'll remind you what it feels like to choose yourself. Deep in the high desert, where golden light paints red rock like fire, and the sky feels close enough to touch, freedom isn't given. It's taken. It all started with one ordinary moment that wasn't ordinary at all. A young woman pressing her hand to cool glass, watching dust devils dance, knowing if she stayed one more day she'd forget how to breathe. That single act of defiance opened a door no one could close. If stories about finding your own wild heart still move you, hit like and drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from tonight. The sun-baked adobe walls of Calder House stood defiant against the vast New Mexico horizon, their rusty orange faces blazing under the relentless afternoon light. Upstairs in her bedroom, 24-year-old Vespera Quill pressed her palms to the chilled window pane, eyes fixed on the dust devils spinning wild across Santa Fe's open plaza. Past the prim English roses and clipped hedges of the inner courtyard, past the tall iron gates that kept wealth safe from want, the untamed frontier rolled out forever. Sagebrush seas, red rock canyons, and a fierce, open freedom that tugged hard at the restless thing buried deep inside her chest. She had never set foot beyond these walls in all her 24 years, cocooned in riches that would break the heart of any hard-scrabble settler family. Imported silk shawls spilled over carved chairs, delicate porcelain from across the ocean sat on the mantel, and crystal chandeliers, dragged at ruinous cost over the Santa Fe Trail, scattered colored light like broken promises across the white-plastered walls. Her father, Deadliest Calder, was the richest trader this side of the Rio Grande. The man who had raised this island of eastern Polish right in the middle of raw wilderness. To Vespera, though, it felt like a velvet-lined cage. "Miss Vespera, your father wants you in the parlor." Calix Ruiz, the housekeeper who had raised her since the cradle, spoke quietly from the doorway. Her lined brown face carried quiet sorrow. She knew exactly what waited below. Vespera's throat closed. "Is he already here?" "Mr. Vex rode in an hour back. Your father's been pouring brandy and talking deals." Calix stepped nearer, voice dropping to a whisper. "Child, if you're fixing to do something reckless, do it now. Once they make the announcement, there'll be no turning back." The words drifted heavy in the air like gun smoke. Vespera turned to the woman who had been more mother than the one who died giving her life. Calix's dark eyes held deep knowing and something fiercer. Permission, maybe. A quiet blessing. "How did you guess?" Vespera breathed. "I've been slipping your things into a hidey hole after dark for 2 weeks now. Small stuff, easy to carry." Calix's mouth curved the tiniest bit. "I was young once, too. I know what it's like to be bartered off like prime cattle." Tears stung Vespera's eyes. "If I run, Father will turn his anger on you." "Let him rage. I'm old, bone-tired, and I've socked away enough to go live with my sister down in Albuquerque. Some things are worth the fire." She pressed a soft leather pouch into Vespera's palm. It jingled faintly with hard-earned silver. "My savings. For the road." "Calix, I can't take—" "You can, and you will. Now get downstairs before they send someone looking." "And stay brave." Calix's voice softened. "Out there it's rough, but it's real. Better a hard truth than a soft lie." The parlor reeked of cigar smoke and iron-clad male confidence. Deadliest Calder stood tall beside the marble mantel, silver threading his freshly groomed beard, shoulders squared like a man who'd never heard the word no. Perched on the edge of a velvet settee like a buzzard sizing up fresh kill, sat Quillion Vex, 43 years old, nearly twice her age, thinning hair combed carefully over a shining scalp, belly pushing hard against his brocade waistcoat. His small, flat eyes followed Vespera's entrance, the way he'd study a ledger or a string of mules. Cold, appraising, hungry for profit. "Vespera, darlin'." Her father's voice poured out smooth and thick, honey laid over forged steel. "Mr. Vex has come all the way from St. Louis just to see you." "Please, sit." Vespera sank into the nearest chair, smoothing her skirts with the automatic grace drilled into her since she could walk. Every gesture measured, every breath rehearsed. The perfect daughter. The perfect prize. She laced her fingers in her lap and waited. Quillen cleared his throat like a banker about to foreclose. "Miss Quill, your father and I have hammered out a deal that'll fatten both our purses considerable. My outfit and Saint. Louis holds tight contracts with half a dozen eastern factories. Your father commands the southern trails down into Mexico. Put those together, and we'll own the most lucrative trade web west of the Mississippi." He paused, clearly expecting applause. Silence answered. He pressed on. "As part of the arrangement, I've asked your father for your hand. He's given his blessing, and I'm here to make it official." The words hit like lead dropped into a still pond. Our engagement, as though her say-so was already signed, sealed, and forgotten. A gentleman's courtesy before the real bargaining closed. Vespera lifted her eyes to her father. "Do I get any voice in this?" Dryston's smile tightened, just a hair. "Vespera, Mr. Vex is a gentleman of standing. This match locks down both families' futures and keeps you comfortable for life. What possible objection could there be?" Everything. She wanted to scream it. The way Quillen looked at her like prime breeding stock. The way he hadn't asked one real thing about her. Her thoughts, her dreams, her heart. The way her whole tomorrow was being traded like a shipment of Kentucky bourbon. But the words caught, strangled by 24 years of being good, quiet, ornamental. She swallowed. "May I have a little time to think it over?" Quillen's mouth twitched, annoyance flashing before the practiced charm slid back into place. "Of course, my dear, though I can't imagine what needs pondering. I can give you a fine house in St. Louis, the best society circles, every comfort a lady could wish." "I'm sure you can." Vespera's nails bit into her palms. "Still, I'd like 1 week." The two men traded glances, a silent negotiation of power and patience. At last, Dryston nodded, jaw set. 1 week, but approach this with the gravity it deserves, Vespera. It's a rare chance." "I understand completely, Father." She understood, all right. She understood she was being sold, traded, bartered like fine Chinese silk or a case of prime whiskey. She understood her father saw her not as flesh and blood, but as the last valuable asset in his empire. Most of all, she understood she had exactly 7 days to break free. The way Quillen Vex eyed her like prime land up for grabs. The way he never once asked what stirred her soul, what thoughts kept her awake, what dreams she nursed in secret. The way her whole damn future was being bartered over freight lines and fat profit shares. But the words stayed locked behind her teeth. They choked there, strangled by a lifetime of lessons in silence, by the crushing weight of what a proper daughter owed, by the bone-deep certainty that ladies didn't raise hell or stake claims. Her voice came out thin as a whisper. "May I have some time to think it through?" Quillen's face twitched, irritation flickering like a bad poker hand, before the smooth mask slipped back on. "Of course, sweetheart, though I'm hard-pressed to see what needs mulling over. I can set you up in a fine St. Louis house, doors open to the finest parlors, every comfort a woman could dream of." "I've no doubt." Vespera's fists knotted in her lap, nails biting half-moons into her palms. "Even so, I'd like a week." Her father's jaw clenched hard enough to crack stone. "Vespera!" 1 week, she cut in, the boldness surprising even herself. "Surely you can spare 7 days to let me weigh a choice this big." The men locked eyes across the room, a silent telegraph of nods and narrowed looks. At last, Dryston gave a curt dip of his chin. "Fine. 1 week. But you treat this with the respect it commands, Vespera. Opportunities like this don't come twice." "I understand, Father." Oh, she understood, clear as a high desert dawn. She understood she was being auctioned off like a bolt of Canton silk or a barrel of prime Kentucky rye. She understood her father didn't see a daughter, just the last high-value chip in his empire. Above all, she understood she had 7 sunrises to break for the horizon. That night, Vespera lay wide-eyed while the house sank into heavy sleep. Moonlight spilled silver across the floorboards, catching the small trunk tucked beneath her bed. Calix had helped her fill it over stolen nights, plain wool skirts, tough cowhide boots, the bare necessities. Nothing frilly, nothing that screamed Dryston Calder's spoiled girl, just what a lone woman needed to scrape by on the raw frontier. She had coin, too. Not only Calix's pouch, but her own quiet hoard built over years. Birthday silver from distant kin. Pocket money her father tossed for ribbons she never bought. The small earnings from needlework she'd sold through Calix's back-channel friends. Pennies on their own, but together they spelled freedom, if she had the nerve to grab it. And nerve demanded a plan. She'd caught the talk drifting through the market, traders and freighters muttering about a fresh wagon outfit forming up. Families hungry for homestead claims farther out, away from Santa Fe's thickening crowds. They'd roll out in 3 days, bound east into Apache country, where the Army's long arm grew short and uncertain. Dangerous as sin. Reckless as a drunk's bet. Maybe the foolhardiest move she could make. Her only shot. Come morning, Vespera claimed a pounding headache and stayed abed. Calix carried up a tray of breakfast along with low-voiced news snatched from the plaza. "They pull out at first light, day after tomorrow," she murmured, pouring tea with steady hands. "Gathering at the old stockade just past town. Wagon boss is Thornavar Holt. Fair dealer, but he runs a tight outfit. He won't pry if your money's good and you prove useful." "How do I get to him?" "Tonight, after lamps are low. I've got my nephew lined up to guide you. He'll stick to the alleys. Your father's cronies won't spot you." Calix's fingers shook the tiniest bit as she set the pot down. "You sure, child? Once you step out that door, there's no coming back." Vespera pictured Quillon Vex's flat, appraising stare. Pictured decades of powdered smiles and calculated visits. Pictured herself aging in silk and safety, never tasting what might have been. "I'm sure." The day dragged like a busted wheel through sand. Vespera played the part. Resting, pondering, heart slamming between terror and wild hope. At supper she forced down bites, kept up polite chatter, wore the mask of the obedient daughter one last evening. Her father spun talk of the wedding he already saw in his mind. "Spring would be perfect. We could hold it right here, invite every big name in the territory." A fine way to parade our new ties with the Vex enterprises. Vespera nodded, murmured, "Yes, sir," shoved potatoes around her plate. Across the table Dryston smiled, easy and certain she was bending to his will. He never guessed his daughter had already slipped away, that the girl across from him was only a shadow, waiting for night to swallow her whole. After the plates were cleared, Vespera slipped upstairs early. She traded silk for the plain travel dress Calix had hidden away. Nothing like the wardrobe full of lace and satin, but tough, simple, made for hard miles. She twisted her long hair into a plain knot at the nape of her neck and draped a simple wool shawl over her shoulders. When she caught her reflection in the small looking glass, the woman staring back felt like a stranger. Perfect. That was exactly what she needed. Right at the stroke of midnight, Calix's nephew, a quiet, steady young man named Jaren, tapped softly at her window. Working together in hushed silence, they eased the trunk down to the ground. Then Vespera swung her legs over the sill and dropped into the crisp night air. Her hands trembled as she took those first few steps away from the only life she'd ever known. They slipped through Santa Fe's narrow back alleys like ghosts, steering clear of the main plaza where her father's cronies lingered over cigars and trade talk. The town slumbered on, oblivious that Vespera Quill was walking straight out of her gilded past and into a wide-open tomorrow full of unknowns. The old stockade rose dark against the star-scattered sky, a rough-hewn timber stronghold hugging the ragged edge of civilization. Inside its walls, wagons stood in tight clusters, families rushing through last-minute chores. Vespera glimpsed children curled asleep in wagon beds, women stowing provisions by lantern glow, men testing harness buckles and greasing wheel irons. Jaren guided her to a sun and wind-carved man standing off by himself, bent over a map in the flicker of a small campfire. "Mr. Holt?" Jaren said low. "Got someone here wants to ride with your outfit." Thornivar Holt lifted his head. Years of prairie sun had etched deep lines around his hawk-sharp eyes. He sized Vespera up in one long, measuring look. "Woman traveling alone? Where's your man? Your pa?" The lie slid off her tongue smoother than she'd feared. "Both gone, sir. Fever took them last winter. I'm headed to Lincoln County to stay with my aunt's kin." She held his gaze steady, willing the story to stick. Holt studied her in heavy silence. In that long beat, Vespera's whole future balanced on a knife's edge. Yes or no, liberty or chains. At last he gave a slow nod. "I don't poke into folks' business if you've got the coin and you'll pull your weight. $40 for a spot in the train, 10 more for room in the supply rig since you ain't got your own team. You good for women's work, cooking, patching, minding young'uns?" "Yes, sir." "Can you handle a firearm?" Vespera hesitated. Her father had once shown her how to break clay pigeons, calling it a cute parlor game. "I'm learning. You'll learn quick out here, or you won't last. That's the plain truth." Holt stuck out a rough, calloused hand. $50 cash and you take my orders, no backtalk. We roll at sunup. Be set." Vespera counted the coins into his palm with shaking fingers. The instant his grip closed over them, a tight knot inside her chest finally eased. She'd done it. She'd really done it. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet." His stern mouth quirked, almost a smile. "Wait till you see the mess you've signed on for." Then, softer. "You running from something, girl?" Vespera met his eyes. "Running toward something." Holt grunted. "Better reason than most give." "Get some shut-eye. Dawn hits hard, and the trail don't give a damn about your delicate feelings." Jaren helped wedge her trunk into the supply wagon, then gripped her hand for a quick, firm shake. "Vaya con Dios, señorita. Hope you find whatever it is you're chasing." "Thank you. Please tell Calix." Her voice cracked. "Tell her I'll carry her kindness with me always." He melted back into the shadows, and suddenly Vespera was alone with the weight of her choice. She claimed a narrow spot near one of the wagons, wrapped herself in a rough blanket, and tried to rest. Sleep refused to come. Her thoughts spun wild with the sheer size of what she'd just done. By morning, her father would wake to an empty room. Fury would follow. He might send riders after her, but by then she'd be gone, swallowed whole by the endless wild country that sprawled far beyond Santa Fe's neat borders. Dawn arrived sharp and cold, brushing the eastern sky with streaks of rose and molten gold. All around Vespera, the camp came alive. Folks crawling out of wagons, fires crackling to life, the rich smell of boiling coffee cutting the chill. The air rang with the clink of harnesses, the low bellow of oxen, children's high, eager voices. Thornverholt's command sliced through the din. "Mount up! We're pulling out!" Wagons groaned and rolled forward, wheels crunching over dry earth as they passed through the stockade gates. Vespera perched in the back of the supply rig, watching Santa Fe shrink behind them. Somewhere in that maze of adobe walls, her father was likely just stirring, probably wondering why Calix hadn't brought up his daughter's breakfast tray. Soon, he'd know. Soon the whole town would buzz that Vespera Quill had vanished like morning mist. But by then she'd be miles down the trail, rolling toward a horizon she'd only ever dared dream about. As the sun climbed and the wagons settled into their steady rhythm, something strange bloomed in Vespera's chest. It took her a heartbeat to name it. Freedom. For the first time in her life, Vespera Quill was free. The outfit rolled out as 7 tight-knit families, each hauling their own bundle of hopes and hard-luck stories toward the far-flung edges of the territory. During those long, dusty days on the trail, Vespera picked up their names and the quiet reasons behind their move. Thornivar Holt led the whole shebang, a widower who'd lost his wife and kids to cholera 5 winters back. Since then, he'd made it his calling to shepherd strangers toward fresh starts, even if his own dreams had been buried long ago. The Locks, Gavrin, Lyrian, and their 3 little ones, were dirt farmers chasing richer soil beyond the packed-in homesteads closer to town. Good-hearted folks, they folded Vespera right into their campfire suppers and easy talk without a second thought. Then there were the Vales, Stryker and Elowen, fresh married and starry-eyed, dreaming of a horse ranch in the open country where acres still went cheap and the grass ran forever. Their bright hope rubbed off on everyone. You could see the spark between them in every quick smile or lingering look. Thalira Cole rode with her 2 strapping teenage boys, bound for her brother's spread near Fort Stanton. Sharp as a skinning knife and practical to the bone, she had a way of cutting straight to the heart of things, qualities Vespera came to respect fast. The 4 Miller brothers, along with their wives and passel of kids, were seasoned frontiersmen hunting better trapping grounds and a bigger slice of the fur trade. And then there was Vespera, alone in a sea of kinfolk, carrying secrets heavier than her trunk and twice as dangerous to share. Those first days hit like a hammer. Vespera's city-soft palms blistered raw from wrestling mule teams and hauling armloads of firewood. Her spine ached from the wagon's endless jolting and nights on unyielding ground. The sun scorched her face despite the deepest bonnet she could tie on, yet every mile that peeled Santa Fe farther behind felt like shedding dead weight. The pain was honest, the labor brutal, but it was hers. She'd picked this road, these blisters, this gamble on tomorrow, and that choice, she realized with a quiet thrill, changed everything. The country itself kept shifting under their wheels. Towering mountains flattened into high desert, endless sweeps of sagebrush and waving grass broken by red rock buttes that caught fire in the slanting light. The sky stretched so wide it felt like the roof of the world had been torn off. At night the stars piled on thick, glittering like spilled coins on black velvet. Vespera had never seen anything half so beautiful. Lyrian Locke took her under her wing during the slow crawl of the days, showing her the real grit of trail life. How to tell when a roast was done clear through, how to stretch a handful of flour into decent bread, how to mend torn canvas or leather under the hot sun, how to ration every drop in a land that gave water grudgingly. "You're catching on quick," Lyrian said one evening while they peeled potatoes by the firelight. "For somebody who says she grew up on a farm, your hands sure started out mighty soft." Vespera's pulse jumped, but she kept her tone light. My aunt mostly ran the house. I stuck to inside chores. Lyrian gave her a long, thoughtful look, then shrugged. Doesn't matter now. You're holding up fine. Out here it ain't where you started. It's whether you can finish the job ahead. Vespera Quill didn't mince words. One afternoon, walking alongside the wagons to rest the teams, she came right out with it. You're running from something, girl. I've seen enough folks on the dodge to spot the signs a mile off. Vespera's step hitched. I don't know what you mean. Sure you don't. Thalira's gaze was steady, not cruel. I won't nose into your business. Whatever you're fleeing must be bad enough to make dying out here look like the better bet. Just remember, the trail don't give a damn about yesterday. It only cares what you bring to the fire today. Keep up your end, and your secrets stay yours. It was the closest thing to welcome Vespera could expect. She dipped her head, gratitude thick in her throat. 16 days in, they rolled up to Miller's trading post, a ragged cluster of log shacks and adobe walls squatting right on the lip of Apache country. It was the raw meeting point where settled life slammed into wild country. Traders barking prices, trappers haggling pelts, off-duty soldiers blowing pay on rotgut and tobacco, scouts swapping stories. When the peace held, Apache traders drifted in with hides, herbs, and handmade goods. We lay over 3 days, Thorniver Holt announced as they circled the wagons within sight of the post. Restock, patch wheels, fix what's broke, next leg's mean, scarce water, rougher ground. Anybody rethinking this is the time to peel off. Nobody budged. They'd come too far, bet too much, hungered too hard for what waited ahead. That first nightfall, Vespera offered to help Lyrian sort medicinal bundles at one of the post's open-air stalls. The place buzzed like a kicked anthill, fur buyers shouting, merchants dickering, soldiers laughing rough over whiskey. It was loud, messy, and alive in a way that set Vespera's blood singing. She was fingering a tied bunch of sage when the air changed. A hush rolled through the crowd, like a cold wind. Talk died. Heads turned, hands drifted toward belt guns and knife hilts. 4 Apache warriors rode in from the east, appearing out of the shimmering desert heat like they'd been carved from the land itself. They sat their ponies easy, flowing with every step the animals took. Trade bundles rode behind their saddles, thick furs, cured hides, bundles of healing plants, finely worked goods. Their purpose was plain, but their arrival shifted everything. Settlers stared with thinly veiled distrust, fingers twitching near triggers. The whole dusty square held its breath. Merchants edged forward slow and careful, hands open for trade, but eyes sharp for any slight. It was an old ritual everyone knew by heart. Polite on the surface, razor-edged underneath. The lead warrior swung down from his pony with smooth, spare grace, every motion counting. Tall for an Apache, most ran lean and compact, he carried a rangy, coiled strength built from a lifetime under open sky. Long black hair spilled past his shoulders, tied back with a simple strip of cloth. He wore the old ways close to the skin, but here and there the white man's touch showed. A calico shirt traded fair, a steel-bladed knife at his belt that caught the light like a promise. But it was his face that stopped Vespera cold. Chiseled jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth set like it didn't waste smiles, and eyes black as moonless night, keen as fresh-flaked obsidian. When those eyes locked on hers across the dusty gap between them, the whole noisy post went silent in her head. Time stretched thin, maybe a heartbeat, maybe less. In that split second, something crossed the divide. Recognition without names, understanding without words, a pull that laughed at borders of blood and tongue. She saw him plain. Not the savage the settlers whispered about. Not a danger or a sideshow, but a man. Sharp mind flashing in his gaze, pride carved into the straight line of his back, wild independence in every hard angle of him. And somehow, against all reason, she knew he saw her the same. Not a white woman, not a settler's daughter, but a soul who craved liberty more than safety, who'd rather burn than bend. Then he turned, the thread snapped, and air rushed back into her lungs. "Who is he?" Vespera whispered to Lyrian, who'd gone stock still beside her. "That's Zethar," Lyrian murmured, voice low as a prayer. "Folks say he's the finest fighter in these parts. Never taken, never beaten. The army sent whole patrols after him. Good men didn't come back. Traitors trust him because his word's iron, but everybody's scared of him too. He bows to nobody, follows nobody's rules but his own." Vespera watched him move through the crowd, 3 warriors shadowing him like extensions of his will. He bargained steady and sure, taking fair offers, walking from bad ones without a backward glance. Dignity clung to him like dust after rain. Even the men who despised his kind couldn't help but give him space. She ought to have been terrified. Every tale she'd heard about the Apache, raids in the dark, blood on the sand, the unyielding fight to keep their ground, should have sent ice through her veins. Instead, a strange heat pulled her toward him, steady and strong as a lodestone calling iron. Over the next 2 days, Zethar came back to the post. Each time Vespera found reasons to linger nearby, telling herself it was simple curiosity, a chance to learn about the people whose homeland they crossed. But the truth ran deeper and hotter. She couldn't tear her eyes away. On the 3rd evening, their last at the post before the wagons rolled on, Vespera walked to the well at the settlement's edge to haul water. The sun dipped low, brushing the western sky with copper and blood-red fire. The high desert chill rolled in fast. She tugged her shawl tighter around her shoulders. She thought she was alone. The families were back at camp, stirring supper pots and tucking kids in. The trading post had quieted, winding down for night. She never heard him come. His steps were too light, too practiced. But she felt him. A shift in the air, like the heaviness before thunder cracks. When she turned, Zethar stood 10 paces off, watching her with those midnight eyes that seemed to see straight through skin and bone. In the fading glow, his face was all hard plains and deep shadows, severe, striking, beautiful in a way that stole breath. Vespera's heart slammed against her ribs, but she lifted her chin and held his stare. No flinching, no fear she didn't truly feel. "You're not like the rest," he said in English, accent thick but words clear as creek water. "You don't look at me with hate or terror. Why?" The question cut straight. No pretty rapping, no polite dance. It demanded truth. "Maybe," Vespera answered slow and careful, "because I know what it feels like to be sized up before anyone knows a thing about you." A spark crossed his face. Surprise, or maybe the echo of something he recognized. He stepped closer. "You're running from something." Not a question. Still she answered. "From a life that never belonged to me. And toward? I don't know yet." The admission surprised her. "Freedom, maybe. The chance to walk my own road." Zethar studied her a long beat, expression unreadable as stone. "Freedom isn't found in running," he said quietly. "It's found in planting your feet where you choose and refusing to be pushed off. Is that what you do?" "Every day I draw breath." The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "My people call me hard-headed, troublesome. I don't bow to white men who want my land. I don't bend when my own kin push for peace at any price. I stand where I decide to stand. That sounds lonely. It is. The words hung plain and raw between them. The words landed raw and bare. No shield, no apology, just truth. Better to stand solitary and real than drown in a crowd while wearing a mask every day. Vespera's throat closed up tight. He got it. This Apache fighter, this stranger from another world, somehow grasped exactly what she'd fled and what she chased with every desperate step. "I should head back," she said, even as her feet stayed planted. "My folks will start wondering where I've gone." "They're not your folks," Zethar replied, gentle but final, like a door closing on an old room. "You ride with them, sure, but you don't fit there any more than you fit wherever you left behind. Then where do I fit?" "That," Zethar answered soft, "is the question only you can answer." They stood wrapped in deepening dusk, 10 feet of hard-packed dirt between them and 1,000 walls of custom, tongue, and history. Yet in that moment, Vespera felt nearer to this man she'd just met than to anyone in the polished, rule-bound circles of Santa Fe. When Zethar finally turned to go, he stopped, glanced back over his shoulder. "The trail your wagons follow is mean country. White men, Mexican men, even some of my own. Plenty would cut down travelers without a second thought. Keep your eyes open. Stay sharp." "You warning me?" "I'm telling you to live." His gaze pinned hers, steady and fierce. "I'd take it poorly if you didn't." Then he vanished into the twilight like smoke on the wind, leaving Vespera rooted by the well, pulse thundering, thoughts spinning like dust devils. That night she lay in her bedroll, staring up at the endless scatter of stars. Come morning the train would pull out, pushing deeper into the wilds. She ought to be planning ahead, where they'd settle, how she'd carve a new start. Instead, her mind kept circling back to the way Zethar had looked at her, like she was something scarce and worth protecting, like she counted, like he saw straight past the layers of manners and pretense she'd worn so long they'd become skin. Around her the camp eased into quiet, families murmuring goodnights, kids sighing in their sleep, low voices blending with the crackle of dying fires. It was warm, safe, ordinary. But Vespera ached for something fiercer, riskier, utterly out of reach, something she couldn't put a name to but recognized instantly in the dark, unyielding eyes of an Apache warrior who'd looked at her and seen not a settler, not a merchant's girl, but simply her. Sleep, when it finally claimed her, came ragged with dreams of wide, empty spaces and choices too big to turn back from. Dawn broke cold and bright, the wagons groaning eastward into rougher land. Vespera sat beside Lyrian Lock in one of the middle rigs, watching Miller's trading post fade into the distance behind them. With every turn of the wheels, she told herself this was right. Forward motion, cutting loose from trouble, but a hollow ache sat heavy in her chest, something she couldn't name or wouldn't. She hadn't caught sight of Zethar that morning. Heaven help her, she'd looked, scanning the handful of figures near the post as they rolled away. But he wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. Why would he watch a bunch of settlers pull out? Why would one woman among dozens matter to him? Their talk by the well had been nothing. Just words, fleeting. So why did it feel like she was leaving a piece of herself behind? "You're mighty quiet today," Lyrian said, deftly nudging the oxen around a jut of rock. "Just worn out," Vespera lied. "Slept poorly." "None of us rested easy. Something about that place, all those stairs, all that tightness in the air. I'll breathe deeper once we're in open country again." Lyrian let a beat pass, then spoke softer. "Something happen? I saw you talking to that Apache last night by the well." Vespera's heart lurched. "He was only warning me about the trail ahead." "Was he?" Lyrian kept her tone even, careful. "Did his warning sound like a friend's? Or something sharper? Friendly, I reckon. Or at least not hostile. Vespera tried for casual. He speaks good English. They say Zethar lived with missionaries as a boy. Picked up the language before he turned his back on everything else they pushed on him. Lyrian shook her head, slow. Can't fault him much. We take their ground, and then act surprised when they push back. It was the kindest thing Vespera had heard any settler say about the Apache. It loosened her tongue enough to ask, "You think they're as dangerous as folks claim?" Lyrian flicked a glance her way. Most are, when cornered. But Zethar, he's cut different. Word is he's never lifted a hand against anyone who didn't come at him first. Never broke a bargain. Cross him, though. Threaten what's his. And he's without mercy. That's why the soldiers can't pin him down. He's too smart to pick useless fights, but plenty fierce to win the ones that count. The words sank deep into Vespera's chest, filling the empty spot with heat. Warm, dangerous, alive. The days melted into one another. Up before light to break camp, rolling through sun-blasted hours with short halts to breathe the teams, circling at dusk to cook and rest, then sleep under the same turning stars. The land grew wilder, more dramatic. Jagged canyons slicing deep, red rock spires rising like ancient sentinels, the horizon stretching farther than any map could hold. Red rock spires jutted up like forgotten sentinels, canyons sliced deep scars into the earth with banded walls telling stories older than memory. Twisted juniper and pinon clung to sheer cliffs that no sane soul should climb. The land was stunning, brutal, and completely without mercy. Vespera learned fast or paid the price in blood and blisters. She mastered rationing every precious drop of water, shielding her skin from the sun's endless hammer, moving with purpose instead of polish. Calluses thickened her palms, her muscles hardened under the grind. The pampered trader's daughter from Santa Fe was being scoured away, layer by layer, uncovering a tougher, more capable woman, one who might actually make it in this unforgiving country. 4 days after pulling away from the trading post, they pitched camp beside a clear, icy creek slicing through a shallow canyon. Snowmelt from far peaks fed the stream, cold enough to ache the teeth. Thornivar Holt declared a day's halt. The teams needed the rest, and one wagon had a wheel threatening to split. That evening, Vespera stepped up to haul water for supper. She grabbed 2 oak buckets and headed upstream, away from the muddy shallows where the stock drank and the kids splashed. The sun hung low, washing the canyon walls in warm amber and soft rose. Cottonwoods along the banks rustled with bird calls, and somewhere far off, a lone coyote lifted its mournful howl into the cooling air. She knelt at the water's edge, dipping the second bucket, when every nerve in her body lit up with warning. She froze, fingers still submerged in the chill current. No sound, no sight, just a primal alarm older than words, a shift in the breeze, a missing bird note, a shadow that didn't belong. "Don't be scared," came the deep, accented voice from behind her. Vespera's heart slammed against her ribs as she turned slow. Zethar stood on the far bank, still as the boulders around him. In the golden slant of sunset, he looked carved from legend, a desert spirit given flesh and bone. He'd been there a while, she realized, watching, waiting. "You've been trailing us." It wasn't a question. Yes. He crossed the creek in 3 long, deliberate strides, water splashing dark around his moccasins. "Since the day you left the post." "Why?" He stopped close enough she could see the fierce light burning in his eyes. "Because I can't let you go." The words hung raw between them, stripped of pretense. Vespera's breath snagged in her throat. She ought to be terrified. Alone with a man she barely knew, a warrior whose name carried fear across the territory, miles from the wagon's safety. She ought to scream, bolt, call for help. Instead, she held her ground and asked, "What exactly do you mean?" "I mean that the instant I laid eyes on you, I knew." His hands flexed at his sides, like he was battling the urge to reach out. 29 winters I've walked this earth. I've known many women, Apache, white, shared beds, shared laughter, walked away clean when it ended. But you, he paused, jaw tightening. You, I can't walk away from. Vespera's mouth went dry. You don't even know me. I know enough. He stepped nearer, movements careful, giving her every chance to back away. She didn't. I know you've got courage, to leave everything familiar for something you only hoped existed. I know you look clear-eyed, not blinded by the poison tales folks spin about my people. I know when you met my gaze you saw a man. Not a savage, not an enemy, just a man. He stood so close now she felt the warmth rolling off him, caught the scent of sage, worn leather, and something untamed that had no name. I know, he went on, voice dropping low. You feel this pull between us, this knowing, this fire. You felt it the first time our eyes locked. Don't pretend otherwise. Vespera's heart pounded so hard she swore it would crack ribs. I'm with the wagon train. We're headed to... To what? He cut in gently. Some dusty settlement where you'll slave away trying to squeeze into another life that don't fit? You ran from one cage in Santa Fe. Why trade it for another? What are you saying? But she knew. God help her, she knew. Come with me. The words struck like summer thunder, plain, impossible, earth-shaking. I can't, Vespera whispered, even as every inch of her screamed the opposite. I don't know you. I don't know your world. You didn't know the world you were riding into either, Zethar pointed out with quiet, unyielding logic. At least with me, it would be your choice. Not fleeing, not hiding, choosing. His hand rose, hovering near her cheek without quite touching, leaving the decision in her hands. Then his fingers brushed her jaw, light as a breath. Vespera's eyes fluttered shut for a second at the contact, a shiver racing through her. I want you, Zethar said, the words plain and honest. No honeyed tricks, no rehearsed lines, just naked truth. From the second our eyes locked, I knew it in my bones. My people have ways, long courtships, slow steps, traditions that take time. But I'm not the kind who sits idle when certainty hits like a thunderclap. And I'm certain I want you, as my woman, my wife, my equal in every storm and sunrise this life throws. This is pure insanity, Vespera breathed. Yet she stayed right where she was, letting his touch linger on her skin. Yes, Zethar said, the faintest ghost of a smile brushing his lips. The finest kind there is. He leaned in until their foreheads nearly met, his breath warm against her face. I felt it the moment you looked at me. You want this the same way I do. I see the war in your eyes. Fear wrestling desire, old rules battling raw truth. But your body tells no lies, Vespera. Your heart tells no lies. Somehow he knew her name. And heaven help her, he was right. Every second since that first glance had been sweet torture, wanting what she'd convinced herself she could never have, shouldn't have, fighting a force as unstoppable as gravity, as certain as dawn breaking over the ridge. Tell me I'm wrong, Zethar murmured, his thumbs stroking slow circles along her cheekbones. The tenderness in the rough pads of his fingers nearly undid her. Tell me you feel nothing of this pull between us, and I'll walk away. I'll let you ride out with your wagons. You'll never see me again. I'll carry the refusal and live with it. His gaze never wavered. But if I'm right, if even a spark of what burns in me burns in you, then come with me. Choose this. Choose us. Choose a life where you answer to no one but your own heart and the man who'd walk through hellfire to keep you safe. Vespera opened her mouth to speak sense, to cling to practicality, to be the polished, obedient daughter Dryston Calder had raised, one who knew passion cooled, attraction faded, and safe choices built steady lives. But the denial died on her tongue. In the dying light, with this warrior's hands cradling her face and his eyes blazing with fierce, unshakable certainty, every careful excuse she'd built turned to ash. "You're not wrong," she whispered. The words were barely out before Zethar's iron control snapped. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her flush against him with a possessive strength that should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home, like being claimed, protected, chosen all at once. His hand slid to the back of her head, tilting her face to his. "You are mine," he said, not asking, not pleading, just stating a fact as solid as the canyon walls, as eternal as the sky overhead. "And I am yours. From this breath forward, there's no other trail for either of us." Then he kissed her. It bore no resemblance to the stiff, stolen peck Quillon Vex had pressed on her during their forced engagement. This was wildfire, hunger, possession, promise, surrender all crashing together. Zethar kissed her like a man starved, and she was his first real meal, like he'd been drowning and she was breath itself. Vespera's fingers knotted in his shirt, yanking him closer, meeting his fire with her own. She'd never been kissed this way. Never known a single touch could shatter and rebuild a person in the same heartbeat. Every nerve sang alive, every sense sharpened, every lingering doubt burned clean away in the blaze of this impossible, undeniable bond. When they finally broke apart, chests heaving, Zethar rested his forehead against hers. "Come with me," he rasped again, voice rough with need. "Be my wife, live free as my people live, under the open sky, answerable only to ourselves and the land." Reality slammed back like cold water. "They'll come searching. The train will raise the alarm, say I've been taken. By the time anyone rides out to look, we'll be long gone. My people know hidden places no white man can track, canyons the army will never find." His hands framed her face again, thumbs gentle but sure. "I swear on my life, I'll keep you safe. Your people." Fear edged in around the edges of longing. "Will they take me in?" "My sister will. She's wed to one of our warriors. She'll show you our ways. Stand as your friend." Zethar's expression softened. "And my mother, Ismera, she's fierce as winter wind. She'll test you hard, but she'll see what I see. Strength. Belonging." "I don't speak your tongue. I don't know how to live wild. I can hardly build a fire without—" "You'll learn." Zethar cut in with rock-solid confidence. "I'll teach you. We'll all teach you. You already walked away from your father's house. You joined this train, learned to work, to travel, to endure. You'll learn this too, because you choose to." Vespera eased back just enough to search his eyes. "Why me? You could have any Apache woman, one who already knows your world, your ways." "Because," Zethar said fiercely, "you're not afraid to choose your own trail, even when it's steep and shadowed, because you look at me and see a man, not the monster stories paint. Because the moment I saw you, my heart, wild and unclaimed all these years, finally knew where it belonged. Because you look straight through the stories folks tell and see the man standing there. No mask, no myth. Because the instant I laid eyes on you, my heart, the wild, untamed thing it's always been, finally found its anchor." He kissed her again, slower this time, sweeter, like tasting something sacred. When he drew back, his dark eyes held fire and something deeper, reverence, almost worship. I don't waste words on lies. Among my people, my word stands even when the truth cuts deep. So hear me plain. You're the only woman I've ever wanted to hold on to. The only tomorrow I can picture. It was reckless. It was crazy. It was everything Vespera had bolted from Santa Fe to chase. Yes, she heard herself whisper. Yes, the smile that broke across Zethar's face stripped years off him, turned the fierce warrior into something younger, lighter, almost boyish with joy. He kissed her once more, quick and fierce, then laced his fingers through hers. We've got to move fast, before they notice you're gone. Grab only what you can carry easy. The rest stays behind. They slipped through the thickening shadows with quiet purpose. Zethar's horse, a striking paint mare, waited tied in a stand of cottonwoods near the creek. While Vespera crept back to the supply wagon and eased her small trunk free, moving silent as a shadow amid the family's stirring supper pots, Zethar gathered trail supplies and readied for the ride. With shaking fingers, she scribbled a quick note and tucked it into her bedroll. I found my road. Thank you for the kindness along the way. Please don't come looking. It wasn't much, an explanation that explained nothing, a goodbye too small for the storm inside her. But it was all she had to give. When she returned, Zethar lashed the trunk behind the saddle with swift, sure hands. Then he lifted her up like she weighed nothing, settling her in front. He swung up behind, arms coming around to take the reins, wrapping her in solid warmth and the wild scent of sage, leather, and open land. You scared? He asked low as they started moving, walking the mare quiet away from camp. Terrified, Vespera admitted, her hands clamping tight to his forearms where they crossed in front of her. And dead certain this is what I want. She felt his smile against her hair. Good. Fear means you know the stakes. Certainty means you know why you're paying them. You need both to live out here. They rode through the night, cutting northeast into country that grew wilder with every mile, rockier trails, deeper shadows, hidden drops. Zethar rode like the land was part of him, knowing every boulder, every safe crossing, every place danger liked to hide. When exhaustion finally tugged at Vespera, her body heavy from the constant watch, he pulled her closer, letting her lean back against his chest. Sleep if you need to, he murmured against her ear. I've got you. Always. Despite the madness of it all, the sheer lunacy of running off with a man she'd barely met, the unknown stretching ahead, the fact that her life now rested in the hands of this stranger. Vespera closed her eyes. She slept. And in her dreams, she ran free. Dawn spilled pink and gold across the desert when they drew rein near a hidden spring tucked among towering red rocks. Zethar slid down first, then reached up to lift her from the saddle, his hands lingering at her waist like he still couldn't quite believe she was real. Welcome to your new life, he said, soft, dark eyes searching her face. Welcome home. Vespera looked around, at the raw, rugged beauty of it, jagged stone towers, stubborn scrub clinging to life, the endless sky curving overhead like a promise. Then she looked at the man who'd claimed her heart with such fierce, unshakable certainty, the one who'd offered her a real choice when every other voice in her life had demanded obedience. For the first time since slipping out of Santa Fe, the empty ache in her chest filled with something warm, solid, right. Home, she repeated, tasting the word, then stronger. Yes, home. Zethar cupped her face in both hands and kissed her. Slow, tender, the kind of kiss that made her throat tighten with emotion. When he drew back, his gaze held heat and something deeper. A vow, a promise, a claim that ran both ways. You are mine, he said, and I am yours. This I swear. This I swear, Vespera echoed. The words felt ancient, sacred, like a vow spoken before the land itself, the start of something that would rewrite everything. The sun climbed higher, chasing off the night chill. Around them the desert stirred awake, birds calling sharp and bright, insects buzzing in the warming air, wind whispering through stone cracks. It was harsh, it was beautiful, it was merciless, it was perfect. The Apache camp lay hidden in a valley that felt cut off from time and maps alike. Steep canyon walls, striped red and ochre, sheltered it on 3 sides. A narrow, easily guarded pass sealed the fourth. No white man's chart showed this place. Few could ever find it. Dome-shaped wickiups of branch and hide dotted the valley floor in what looked like chance but was really careful design. For defense, for family, for living close. Smoke curled lazy from cook fires into the clear morning air. Children splashed and laughed along the creek banks, while women moved through their daily chores with steady, sure hands, grinding corn, weaving baskets, tending small fires. Men gathered in loose knots, sharpening blades, mending bows, or talking low over pipe smoke. When Zethar and Vespera rode into the valley on the paint mare, the whole camp went still as stone. Talk cut off mid-word. Kids froze in their games, heads whipping around. Faces turned, some wide with curiosity, some tight with caution, others flat-out hostile. Vespera's pulse thundered in her ears under the weight of all those stares weighing her like a judge's gavel. She felt every inch of her pale skin, her outsider features, her total deafness to the quick, flowing Apache words swirling around her. An older woman stepped from the largest wickiup. Her face was lined deep with years and wisdom, authority radiating from her like heat off sun-baked rock. She wore the old-style dress but carried herself like someone used to being heard the first time. Her dark eyes locked on Vespera, sharp, unblinking, making her want to press back against Zethar's chest and hide. The woman fired off rapid Apache, tone sharp and demanding. Zethar answered in the same tongue, respectful but unyielding. The back and forth grew heated, voices rising and falling like wind through the canyon. At last, Zethar switched to English for her sake, jaw set tight. "This is Ismera, my clan mother. She wants to know why I've brought a white woman into our home. I told her you're my wife, that I've claimed you, you've accepted, and you chose to leave your people and come with me." Ismera's eyes narrowed to slits. She spoke again, shorter, sharper, like a blade. Zethar translated, voice strained. "She says you have to prove you're worth keeping. That soft hands and a pretty face mean nothing here. If you want to stay, you show you can live, contribute, carry your share, not be dead weight." Before Vespera could find words, any words, a younger woman pushed through the ring of onlookers. She was striking. Long, dark hair braided thick down her back, eyes bright with barely held excitement. She wore a mix of hide dress and traded calico, moving with easy confidence. She spoke quick and teasing to Zethar in Apache, then turned to Vespera with clear, accented English. "I'm Tazira, this impossible brother of mine's sister. Welcome to our home. He's never dragged anyone back here before. You must be something special, or completely out of your mind. Maybe both." Her smile was warm, real, and Vespera felt the knot in her chest loosen just a fraction. "Thank you. I'm Vespera." Tazira rolled the name on her tongue, then nodded. "I like it. Come on. You look half dead on your feet. You need water, food, a place to sit, and someone to spell out what you've stepped into before Ismera starts testing you right here." She hooked her arm through Vespera's like they'd known each other forever and steered her toward a wickiup, rattling off rapid Apache to the crowd as they passed. Vespera glanced back over her shoulder. Zethar met her eyes, gave one firm nod. "Trust her," then turned back to Ismera to keep talking. Tazira's wickiup was warm and bigger inside than it looked, everything neatly stowed, sleeping robes soft and inviting. She pressed a gourd bowl of cool water into Vespera's hands and waited till she drank before speaking. "So you walked away from everything to come here. That's either brave as hell or foolish as sin. Which is it?" Vespera gave a small, honest shrug. "I won't know for sure till a month from now." Tazira laughed, bright, like bells ringing across the valley. "I like you already. Honesty goes far with Ismera. She'll put you through it, no question. She tests everybody. But meet her trials with guts and straight talk, and she'll come around. Eventually. And if I don't? Then it'll be rough." Tazira's face sobered. "I won't sugarcoat it, Vespera. You picked a hard trail. Our ways aren't yours. The work never stops. The life's unforgiving. And because you're white, folks will watch you twice as hard, judge you twice as harsh. Some will never warm up. Others will wait for you to stumble. Comforting," Vespera said dryly. Tazira's smile returned, quick and kind. "But you've got Zethar. Now you've got me. And my husband Kelver. He's good-hearted even if he growls like he's not. We'll teach you. We'll stand by you. Prove yourself. And you will. And most of the rest will come around. In time." In the days and weeks that followed, Vespera learned proving her place wasn't one big trial. It was 1,000 small ones, every single day. Each chore got measured, every slip noticed, every win weighed against a stricter scale than the women born to this life faced. Tazira became her steady guide and first real friend in this new world. She showed Vespera how to spot plants good to eat from ones that'd kill you slow, how to dry and smoke meat so it kept through lean moons, how to scrape and stretch hides, back-breaking, blister-raising labor that left Vespera's shoulders on fire and her palms raw. "It's tough," Tazira admitted one afternoon as they worked, a deer skin stretched tight on a frame, scraping with steady strokes. "But it's honest. You put in the sweat, you see the results. Not like back in the white world, where so much is show, acting like something you're not." Vespera nodded, muscles screaming but heart steady. "So much pretending. Here the desert don't care about your family name or your father's money. It only asks, can you stay alive? Can you bend without breaking? Can you stand when everything wants you to fall?" Tazira paused mid-scrape, her eyes studying Vespera with quiet appraisal. "My brother spotted that fire in you right off. I'm starting to see it too." Nights belonged to Zethar. Once the day's grind ended and the camp eased into its evening rhythm, supper shared around crackling fires, old stories drifting on the smoke, little ones tucked into robes, he'd come to their wickiup. It sat bigger than most, perched on the camp's edge with a clear sweep of stars overhead, a spot that marked him as a warrior held in high regard. There, hidden from prying stares and sharp tongues, they explored each other with a hunger that felt brand new, yet timeless. Zethar was patient, but his passion ran deep. He taught her the language of touch with the same fierce focus he gave everything else. He showed her pleasure could flow both ways, that heat could burn wild one moment and gentle the next, that two bodies could speak truths no words ever reached. In his arms, Vespera discovered a liberty she'd never dared imagine, the right to crave without shame, to claim without saying sorry, to give without holding back. Each caress staked a claim, each kiss sealed a vow. Each time they came together, it hammered home the truth. She'd chosen right. This rugged path was hers, and she was tough enough to walk it. "You're picking up our ways faster than I expected," Zethar murmured one night, fingers drawing slow, lazy circles across her bare shoulder as they lay tangled in the robes. Ismera noticed. "She don't hand out smiles easy, but today when you pitched in with the butchering and never flinched, I caught respect in her eyes." "I dropped the knife twice. Nearly sliced my own thumb off, Vespera said, voice dry but warm with satisfaction. But you didn't quit. Didn't whine or beg off or act like you deserved kid gloves. You asked how, then tried again. That's what counts. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Stubbornness and guts. Those are what Ismera prizes higher than any born talent. Do you think I'll ever really belong here? Zethar rolled onto his side, head propped on one hand so he could look down at her. In the faint glow leaking through the wicky-up walls, his face was all hard angles and deep shadows. Beautiful. Fierce. Hers. You already do. You picked this life. You picked me. That's all the belonging that matters. But Vespera was learning belonging went deeper than choice. It demanded proof, day after day. The real trial came 6 weeks in. Word spread of a deer herd spotted in the western mountains. A hunting party was forming. Dangerous work, treacherous trails, fickle weather, and always the chance of crossing soldiers or bitter settlers. I want to ride along, Vespera said when Zethar told her. He frowned, protective instinct flaring. It ain't necessary. You've already shown plenty right here in camp. Have I? Or have I only proved I can handle the safe jobs with folks watching? She met his eyes level. I need this, Zethar. I need to prove, to them, to myself, that I'm not some white woman playing dress-up, that I can stand in this world for real. He studied her long, conflict plane on his face. At last he gave a slow nod. You ride with me. Stay close, do exactly what I say, and remember, the land's gorgeous, but it'll kill you quick if you slip. I understand. I hope so. He pulled her in, arms crushing tight. I didn't claim you just to watch you throw yourself away on foolishness. The party numbered 8. Zethar, Vespera, Tazira, and her husband Kelvir, plus 4 other warriors, including Bidzin, who'd made no secret of doubting her from day one. They rode out at first light into country that turned meaner mile by mile. Vespera had gotten steadier on horseback these past weeks, more at ease with Zethar's paint mare. But this ground tested even old hands, narrow ledges hugging sheer drops, steep plunges into rocky creek beds, footing hidden under loose shale and brush. They trailed the herd 2 full days, climbing higher into thin, cold mountain air. Nights they camped cold. No fires, too risky with army patrols prowling. They chewed dried meat, drank icy water, huddled under blankets against the bite. On the 3rd day, closing on the herd, everything went wrong. They were crossing a knife-edge trail, horses in single file, cliff wall on one side, stomach-lurching void on the other. Vespera rode 3rd, right behind Zethar and Kelvir, every thought fixed on keeping the mare calm and sure-footed. Then the mare's hoof came down on rotten rock. The horse shrieked, pure panic, as the ledge crumbled. Vespera felt the sick lurch of nothing under her, the world tipping sideways. Her hands locked useless on the reins. The drop yawned below, hundreds of feet to jagged stone and certain death. Then iron hands seized her, fingers clamping arm, shoulder, yanking her from the saddle with bruising power. She crashed against a solid chest. Zethar's arms locked around her like steel bands as they teetered on the breaking edge. Behind them, the mare plunged with one last scream that ended sharp when she hit bottom. For a long, frozen heartbeat, no one moved. No one breathed. Vespera clung to Zethar, body shaking with shock that hit late and hard, mind blank with how close death had brushed. Then Zethar's voice rasped harsh in her ear. Breathe. You're alive. Breathe. Vespera dragged in air, the simple act suddenly the biggest thing in the world. Around them, the party edged past the broken trail to safer ground, careful and silent. When they finally scrambled to solid ground, Zethar eased Vespera down, but kept his arms locked around her like she might vanish if he let go. His rough hands cupped her face, eyes blazing with a fury that bordered on raw panic. "Never again," he growled low. "You hear me? I won't stand by and watch you die. I wouldn't live through it." "I'm sorry," Vespera whispered, voice shaking. "I didn't mean—" "It wasn't your doing. The rock gave way. Could have happened to any of us." His jaw clenched hard, body still rigid from the terror that hadn't fully let go. "But from here on, you ride with me. No arguments." That night, in a sheltered canyon, as the party made cold camp, Bidzin walked up slow, clearly uneasy. He spoke halting English, words coming out stiff. "Yesterday I called you dead weight, a risk. I was wrong. Today you didn't fall apart. You held on, did what needed doing. And Zethar, he moved quicker than I've ever seen him, because you matter to him. That makes you matter to the rest of us." It was a grudging apology, but honest. Vespera nodded, accepting it. "Thank you. I've still got a long way to go. We all do. The land teaches every day. Stop learning and you don't last." Bidzin paused, then added quietly, "Takes guts to come here, to pick this life. Foolish maybe, but brave. I respect brave." After he walked off, Tazira settled beside her, handing over a bowl of dried meat and berries. "You earned respect today, not because death came close, but because of how you faced it. No crying, no whining, no begging to turn back, just steady nerve and acceptance." "I was scared out of my mind," Vespera admitted. "Good. Fear keeps you breathing. No fear is what gets you killed." Tazira nudged her shoulder, friendly-like. "You're turning into one of us, Vespera. You might not feel it yet, but we see it. Next afternoon they found the herd, a solid bunch grazing in a high meadow ringed by tall pines. The hunt went clean and quick, every rider knowing their part without a word wasted." Vespera watched, awestruck, as the warriors moved like they shared one mind, taking only what they needed, no waste, no cruelty, giving quiet honor to the animals that would feed and clothe the people. While they butchered the kills, Tazira worked shoulder to shoulder with Vespera, showing her the right cuts. "Every piece has use," she explained. "Meat for eating, hide for clothes and shelter, sinew for thread and bowstrings, bones for tools and needles, hooves boiled down for glue. Even the blood has purpose. Nothing thrown away. That's respect." "It's so different from Santa Fe," Vespera said, following Tazira's careful strokes. "Back there, meat showed up wrapped in paper from the butcher. I never once thought about the life behind it. Here you can't forget. You honor it by using every bit. That's why we last when others don't," Tazira said. "We know everything's tied together. Take only what you need, use all you take, give thanks for what's given." She paused. "One of the first things Apache kids learn. You're picking it up as a grown woman, harder that way, but you're doing it." That evening, as the hunters made camp heavy with meat and hides, Vespera felt the shift in how the warriors treated her. Nothing loud, just quiet signs of acceptance. A spot cleared for her by the fire, the waterskin passed her way first, Kaelver taking time to show her how to lash a load secure on a horse, making sure she got it right. They'd faced real danger together, and she hadn't broken. She'd earned her place, not as some soft outsider playing pretend, but as someone who could stand in the hard places. 3 days later, they rode back into the valley. Ismera waited, watching close as the party came in, taking note of how the warriors acted around Vespera, how even Tazira showed her easy respect. That night the clan mother came to Zethar's wiki-up, a visit heavy with meaning, both honor and judgment. She spoke in formal Apache, voice carrying the weight of ceremony. Zethar translated, emotion thickening his words. "She says you've proven yourself worthy, that you carry a warrior's heart even if you weren't born to it. She welcomes you as a true daughter of the people, not as Zethar's white woman, but as Vespera, who chose strength over ease, truth over lies, freedom over chains. Tears stung Vespera's eyes. This wasn't just tolerance, it was belonging, hard-won through fire and fear, offered freely by a people who put truth above everything. "Tell her thank you," Vespera said, voice rough. "Tell her I'll work every day to deserve this, learn more, grow stronger, give back, as long as she'll let me stay." Ismera listened to the translation, then stepped forward and did something rare. She gripped Vespera's shoulder in the warrior's clasp. Firm, respectful. When she left, her approval settled over the camp like a warm wind spreading outward. Later, alone in their wiki-up, Zethar drew Vespera into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever touched. "I knew," he whispered against her hair. "From that first glance at the trading post, I knew you'd be exactly this, strong, brave, perfect." "Mine," she corrected softly, thinking of Tazira's friendship, Ismera's hard-earned nod, the camp that was starting to feel like home. "Ours. We belong to each other, and to this place, these people." "Yes," Zethar kissed her, slow and deep, full of promise. "Ours." Outside, the camp wound down, children's laughter fading into sleep, low voices around dying fires, a coyote's distant call welcoming the moon. Inside, Zethar and Vespera rediscovered what belonging really meant. To each other, to this life, to a future they were forging with courage, choice, and love. The stars turned overhead, ancient and uncaring. The desert wind sang its lonesome song, and in that secret valley where two worlds brushed edges, a woman who'd fled everything familiar finally found the one thing she'd always been searching for. 3 months after Vespera settled into the Apache camp, autumn swept the high desert in waves of gold and deep crimson. Nights turned sharp, the air carrying the bite of winter not far off. It was a time of readying, gathering the last wild foods, curing hides stiff against the coming cold, patching wiki-ups and windbreaks for the hard months ahead. It was also the season when Vespera's old life came riding back like a bad debt. The first sign came from the far-ranging scouts who kept watch beyond the valley rim. They brought word of heavier army boots in the region, patrols pushing wider than usual, stopping at every trading post and crossroads settlement to ask questions. Then the news sharpened. A bounty hunter was cutting through the territory, flashing a photograph and hunting for any sign of a white woman living among the Apache. The scouts described the image: a young woman in fine dresses, hair pinned up fancy, face set in careful composure. It was Vespera, as she'd been in Santa Fe. The merchant's polished daughter, the gilded bird in a cage, the woman who no longer breathed. "Your father's still looking," Zethar said grimly after the council fire with the elders. His face was dark, rage simmering just under the surface. "He's hired men, put up reward money for word of you. Bounty hunters are showing your picture at every crossroads, every post, every place where our worlds touch." Vespera felt ice slide through her veins. She'd known this shadow might follow, had prayed the endless wild would bury her tracks forever. But Dryston Calder was a man used to winning, used to bending the world to his will. His daughter running off wasn't just loss, it was a slap to his pride, a crack in his iron control. Of course he'd hunt, of course he'd spend whatever it took to drag his property back. "What do we do?" she asked, forcing her voice steady. Zethar called the council again. Ismera, the senior warriors, Tazira, and her husband Kael'vir. The talk stayed in Apache, fast and fierce, but Tazira leaned close to whisper the main points to Vespera. Some pushed to break camp at once, vanish deeper into the mountains where no white man could track, where trails belonged only to the people. Others argued running would buy time, not safety. Soldiers would keep coming. In the end, an elder, Cochise, who'd seen 70 hard winters, spoke up. Tazira translated quietly. They want proof she lives or proof she's gone. We give them proof of death, false proof. Let them believe she was killed so they stop hunting. It was a gamble. If the trick was sniffed out, it could bring fire down on the whole band. Soldiers, revenge raids, worse. But if it worked, Dreisten Calder's search would die for good. After long debate, with Ismera's steady backing, they agreed to try. The plan needed care. They picked a spot 3 days' ride from camp, near enough to the old wagon route for the story to hold, far enough out that no one would dig deep. Zethar, Vespera, Tazira, Kelvir, and 2 other warriors made the ride. They carried Vespera's old Santa Fe dress, the elegant one she'd fled in, kept safe all these months. Now they tore it to rags, scattered the pieces among sharp rocks and thorny brush. They mixed deer blood with dirt for dark, violent-looking stains. Zethar fired his rifle point-blank into a tree trunk, leaving black powder burns and splintered wood. They added more signs: churned earth, snapped branches, scuff marks that spoke of a struggle to any trained eye. "This feels like dying," Vespera said, watching them stage the scene, voice small. "Like I'm burying who I used to be." Zethar stopped, pulled her close against him. "You're not dying. Vespera Quill, the woman trapped in that old cage, she's the one fading. But you, the one who chose freedom, who earned her place here, who became my heart, you're more alive than ever." They left the false trail, where it would be found in time, then rode back silent to camp. Now they waited. 5 weeks later, word filtered in through the quiet web of traders and scouts who moved between worlds. The bounty men had stumbled on the site. They'd studied the torn cloth, the blood-soaked dirt, the signs of fight. They rode back and reported to Dreisten Calder. His daughter was dead, ambushed by hostiles on the trail, body likely dragged off by scavengers. Talk flared of retaliation, sending troops to burn out the guilty band. But wiser voices cut through. No way to pin it on any one group. Punishing random Apache for something maybe done by others would only spark more blood. Better to let it lie than light a bigger fire. In the end, the hunt ended. Vespera Quill was declared dead, mourned by a father who'd never learned she'd chosen wild freedom over duty, fierce love over proper manners. "It's done," Zethar said, when the last news reached them. His arms came around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. "You're free, truly free. No one's coming for you now. No one can drag you out of this life you chose." Vespera leaned into his warmth, feeling a heavy chain she hadn't known she still carried finally snap loose inside her chest. A tension she hadn't even known she was still hauling around eased out of her chest like a long-held breath. "He thinks I'm dead. The woman he raised, the one he tried to shape. That version of me is gone. She died the day I walked away. What's left is the woman you helped me become." Zethar turned her gently to face him, hands steady on her shoulders. "Does it sting, knowing he's mourning a daughter who vanished rather than bend to what he wanted?" Vespera met his eyes, searching her own heart. "Yes, but not as sharp as I expected. I mourned too, for the father I wished he'd been, the one who might have loved me for who I was instead of what I could bring him. Still, I don't regret a single step. Not one." "Good." Zethar leaned in and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I'm a selfish man, Vespera. I couldn't stand losing you to regret. That winter hit hard. Snow piled deep in the high passes, cold snapping down like a steel trap. The band shifted to lower winter camps, sheltered valleys with better cover and closer water. Life narrowed to pure survival. keeping fires alive, stretching every scrap of food, shielding the old and the young from the bite. It was in the heart of that cold, huddled close for warmth, that Vespera felt her body begin to change. At first, the signs crept in quiet. A missed cycle she blamed on the hard trail, waves of nausea she chalked up to bad jerky or thin air, a new tenderness in her breasts. But as the weeks stacked up and the feelings held on, understanding broke over her like dawn. She was carrying a child. The knowledge flooded her with a wild mix, joy sharp enough to cut, fear cold as the snow outside, excitement tangled with worry. A baby would root her deeper into this life, make her vulnerable in ways she'd never been. But it would also stand as living proof. She belonged here. Her choice had been right. Her heart had found its home. That night, Zethar's face lit with wonder and a fierce, protective joy. He drew her close with a gentleness that belied his warrior's build, cradling her like she might shatter. "A child," he murmured, one broad hand spreading warm across her still flat belly. "Our child, a life we made together, born from the fire between us." "Are you happy?" Vespera asked, sudden uncertainty creeping in. "It'll be hard. Winter supplies are thin and—" "Happy?" Zethar laughed, the sound rich and deep. "I'm past happy. You've given me everything. Your trust, your courage, your heart, your body. Now this too. A future, a family, a reason bigger than myself to keep standing strong." His hand stayed on her stomach, steady and claiming. "We'll welcome this little one in spring, when the world wakes fresh. It fits. You brought spring to my heart. Now you bring new life to our family." Through the bitter winter months, the pregnancy moved forward. Vespera worked as long as her changing body allowed, refusing to be seen as fragile or extra burden. The Apache women rallied around her with plain-spoken care, sharing tips for the queasiness, herbs for the ache in her back, stories of what to expect. Ismera came often, bringing special foods and bundles of healing plants. Through Tazira's quiet translation, she'd say, "Strong mother makes strong baby. Eat well. Rest when your body calls for it. Ready your mind for the fight of bringing life into the world." "Fight?" Vespera asked, nerves showing. Ismera's lined face creased in what might have been a smile. "Every birth is a battle. The mother fights pain to bring the child forth. The baby fights to enter this hard world. Both have to be strong." She laid a weathered hand on Vespera's arm. "You're strong enough. I've seen it." As her belly rounded with life, Zethar grew more watchful. He hovered close, frowning if she lifted anything heavier than a water gourd. He insisted she stay near camp when the men rode out to hunt, checking on her throughout the day like she might vanish if he looked away too long. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass," Vespera protested one afternoon when he tried once more to stop her hauling firewood. "I know." Zethar cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "But you carry what's most precious to me. My heart beats inside you now. My future grows under your skin. Let me guard you both. It's all I can do." How could she fight that? So she let him hover, warmed by the fierce tenderness in every worried glance, every careful touch. Spring arrived late that year. The mountains clung stubbornly to their ice and snow, but at last the world softened. Snow melted off the peaks, green pushed through wet earth, wildflowers burst in impossible color, desert paintbrush blazing red, lupine spiking purple, prickly pear blooming defiant yellow, sage brushing silver against the warming stone. And with the spring came Vespera's labor. It started in the early dark of a mild May morning, pains wrapping tight around her back and belly like iron bands tightening slow. Tazira, who'd slept close for weeks waiting for this, woke in an instant. "It's time," Tazira said calmly, then slipped outside to rouse the other women. Within minutes, Vespera's wickiup filled with seasoned mothers, Tazira, Ismera, and 3 others who'd guided countless babies into the world. They moved with practiced ease, stoking the fire higher, laying out clean hides and herbs, easing Vespera into a low squat that opened the way for birth. Zethar tried to push through the doorway, face drawn tight with worry, but Ismera blocked him with a sharp stream of Apache. Tazira translated, barely hiding a grin. "She says this is women's work. Pace and fret outside like every other new father who ever lived." The labor stretched long, 16 hours of pain rolling in like breakers, each wave fiercer than the last. Vespera held on, pulling from a deep well of strength she hadn't known she carried. The women coached her steady through every contraction. Sips of water, low words of encouragement, hands supporting her when she thought she couldn't face another surge. "You're strong," Ismera told her at one point, voice firm as bedrock. "You walked away from everything familiar, earned respect among strangers, chose the hard trails and kept walking. This is just one more. You'll walk it too." When the baby finally came, slick, red-faced, and howling with life, Vespera broke into tears of pure relief and fierce love. The women cleaned the infant with sure hands, wrapped him in soft hide, and laid him in her arms. A boy, sturdy and healthy, thick dark hair already showing, eyes that would surely darken to match his father's. He was perfect. He was theirs. Once everything was settled, Zethar was allowed in. He approached slow, like a man walking in a dream, his warrior's face softened with raw wonder. When Ismera placed the child in his arms, tears tracked silently down Zethar's cheeks, the first time Vespera had ever seen him cry. "He's perfect," Zethar whispered, fingers gentle on the tiny hand. "Look at him. Look what we made." They named him Nixara, mischievous one, because from his first hours he made his presence known with strong cries and waving fists. He nursed hungrily, slept in restless bursts, and stole every heart in the camp. Even the warriors who doubted her most came forward with quiet blessings for the boy. Nixara wasn't just a child. He was a living bridge between worlds, proof of what could grow when people chose love over fear, courage over custom. The camp marked his arrival with a feast. Meat roasted slow over coals, special dishes prepared, stories swapped around fires that burned long into the night. Zethar held his son close, murmuring to the sleeping infant about the land and sky that would shape him. "This is your home," he said soft. "These are your people, your Apache, born to strength and freedom. But you carry your mother's world too. You'll know both, understand both, and be stronger for it." Vespera watched her husband cradle their child, a contentment so deep it almost hurt blooming in her chest. This moment, this life, it was everything she'd run from Santa Fe to chase, even if she hadn't known the shape of it then. Not just escape from chains, but the freedom to build something true, something chosen, something entirely hers. The months that followed brought fresh challenges and deeper joys. Nixara grew fast, changing from a helpless newborn to a wide-eyed infant who studied everything with serious dark eyes. Vespera learned to juggle mothering with the camp's endless work, thankful for Tazira's steady help and the other women's practical wisdom. Zethar proved a devoted father, often seen with Nixara strapped in a cradleboard against his chest, speaking low in Apache about the desert, the mountains, the ways of their people. He taught the boy things no baby could grasp yet: how to read the land signs, how to follow a trail, how to live with honor. "You must know both worlds," Zethar said one evening, as they watched the sun sink together, Nyxara dozing peacefully between them. Your mother's and mine. Understand where you come from, all of it, so you can choose who you'll become. Will that be enough? Vespera asked quietly, giving voice to the quiet fear that had shadowed her since she first felt the quickening. The world doesn't treat kindly those who don't fit one box. He'll be too white for some, too Apache for others. Then we raise him proud of exactly who he is, Zethar answered, arms sliding around her shoulders. We teach him he comes from courage, yours and mine. We show him choosing your own trail is worth whatever price it carries. We teach him love outlasts fear, truth outweighs approval, and freedom's worth fighting for. Vespera leaned into his warmth, watching their son sleep. She thought of the woman she'd been in Santa Fe, trapped, afraid, living a script someone else wrote. She thought of the terrifying leap she'd taken, following a warrior into the wild unknown. She thought of all she'd gained: strength, purpose, belonging, love, family. I'd do it all again, she said softly. Every scary step, every hard mile, every doubt and danger, because it brought me here, to you, to this. Zethar kissed her temple, lips lingering. As would I. From that first look at the trading post, I knew my life was about to shift. I didn't know how deep, didn't know you'd bring such fullness, such joy, but I knew you were mine. I knew I had to claim you or wonder forever what might have been. Ours, Vespera corrected with a small smile, their old gentle tease. Ours, Zethar agreed, voice warm with love and promise. As night settled and stars filled the wide New Mexico sky, the little family sat close. A white woman who'd chosen freedom, an Apache warrior who'd claimed his heart's truth, and the child who carried their shared future. Far off, a coyote lifted its lonely song. But here, in this moment, none of them felt alone. They were exactly where they belonged. Together, under the endless sky, living the life they'd fought for against every odd and expectation. They were home. 5 years later, the territory kept changing. More settlers pressed in, claiming deeper into Apache ground. More soldiers rode out, trying to enforce reservation lines that made no sense to people who'd roamed free for generations. Tension between worlds grew thicker, violence flaring hot, then fading like summer thunderstorms. But in their hidden valley, Zethar and Vespera built a life that rose above the storm. Nyxara grew into a bright, lively boy, fluent in English and Apache, able to track game with his father and name healing plants with his mother. He rode almost before he walked, fearless on horseback, loved fiercely by the whole camp, spoiled by Tazira, schooled in warrior ways by Bidjan, doted on by Ismera. He asked endless questions about both worlds he straddled. Nyxara grew fast, turning from a helpless newborn into a sharp-eyed little boy who watched the world with serious curiosity. He spoke both English and Apache like they were second nature, tracked game alongside his father, and learned the names of healing plants from his mother. He was riding almost before he could walk, small body fearless on horseback, and the whole camp adored him. Ismera doted on him shamelessly, Bidjan taught him warrior games, and his Aunt Tazira spoiled him rotten. His questions never stopped, always circling the two worlds he straddled. "Why do white people live in boxes?" he asked one bright afternoon, kicking his legs as he sat on a rock. "Why do they stay in one place forever?" Vespera smiled, helping him practice his English. "Because they think the land can be owned. They believe if they put fences around it, that makes it theirs." "That's silly," Nyxara said with perfect, unshakable Apache logic. "How can anyone own the earth? The earth owns itself." Vespera laughed softly, but inside she understood. Her son would grow up walking between two worlds in ways neither she nor Zethar ever fully could. He would need to carry both with grace, with wisdom. It was a heavy load for a child still learning to tie his own moccasins. Vespera herself had become so woven into Apache life that visiting traders no longer spotted her as white at first glance. Her skin had taken on the deep bronze of high desert sun. Her hands were calloused and capable. She wore traditional clothing, spoke Apache with only the faintest trace of an accent, and moved through camp with the quiet confidence of someone who truly belonged. But beyond the surface, she had found something Santa Fe never gave her: purpose. She was no longer just Zethar's wife, no longer only Nixara's mother. She was Vespera, healer, because Ismera had taught her well, hunter, though never as skilled as the warriors, teacher, showing the children English and numbers, friend, contributor, part of the people. Here she was valued for what she could do, for who she had become, not for her blood or her father's name. One evening as they watched Nixara chase other children along the creek, laughing wild and free, Vespera spoke quietly. "Do you ever regret it? Claiming a white woman? All the trouble it brought?" Zethar looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Regret you? That's the best decision I ever made. Never. Not for one heartbeat. I just wonder sometimes what your life might have been without me. Simpler, maybe, less tangled. An Apache wife who understood everything from the start. Children who'd never have to question which world they fit." "Simpler, sure," he said, "but emptier. Less alive. Less joyful." He turned her to face him, hands firm on her shoulders. "I was a good warrior before you, strong, respected, skilled, but I was alone. I didn't know what I was missing until I saw you. Then I knew I'd never be whole without you. You're not a complication, Vespera. You're the answer to a question I never even knew how to ask." Tears stung her eyes. "I love you. So much it scares me sometimes." "Good." That rare, transforming smile broke across his face. "Love ought to scare you a little. It means you understand how precious it is, how much you stand to lose. But the fear's worth it, for this, for us, for the life we've built." The sun sank low, painting the sky in impossible oranges and purples that looked almost too vivid to be real. Nixara came running back, cheeks flushed, dark hair wild around his shoulders. Zethar scooped him up, tossing him high until the boy shrieked with pure delight. Then he settled Nixara on his shoulders, little hands tangling in his father's hair for balance. Watching them together, Vespera felt that same deep, aching contentment she'd known the day Nixara was born. This was what she had run from Santa Fe to find, even if she hadn't known the shape of it then. Not just freedom from chains, but the freedom to build something real, something chosen, something completely her own. She had been hunted by her father's men, claimed by the territory's most feared warrior, tested by a merciless land and an even harder people. She had lost her old name and forged a new one through trial, sweat, and stubborn will. She had learned that real strength doesn't come from privilege. It comes from choosing the hard road and walking it anyway. And in the end, she had found what most people spend their whole lives searching for: a place where she belonged completely, work that mattered, people who valued her for who she truly was, and a love that crossed every boundary of blood, culture, and expectation. The coyotes began their evening song, voices rising and falling through the gathering dark. Zethar reached for her hand. Nixara perched securely on his shoulders. Together they walked back to their wickiup. Behind them the camp slipped into its familiar evening rhythm. Fires lit for supper, children called in from play, grown folks gathering to share the day's news. It was ordinary and beautiful, dangerous and precious all at once. It was home. As the first stars appeared in the wide New Mexico sky, Vespera knew with bone-deep certainty she would never trade this life. Not for any velvet-lined cage, not for any safe, empty comfort, not for anything the old world could offer. She had run from the world that hunted her, and found something far greater, a world she had chosen, a love she had claimed, a family she had built, a freedom that was real, complete, and triumphantly her own. She had become prey to the territory's most feared Apache warrior, and in his claiming, she had finally found herself. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for being here, and letting this story live within your heart. If it moved you, I hope you'll walk beside us through more journeys of the Wild West, stories filled with truth, endurance, and grace. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and stay close. Together we'll keep riding across these wide-open lands of memory and hope. Thank you. Aviso legal barra disclaimer. Our narratives bring inspiration from the past, recreated with fictional and dramatized interpretations for entertainment purposes only. AI tools serve as creative support, but the storytelling, editing, and emotional refinement are handled by our team to guarantee authenticity. We comply with content policies for AI use, avoiding impersonations, identity fabrication, or historically misleading images. All visual and audio content is legally sourced. Redistribution or modification requires prior written approval. Thank you for honoring creativity, collaboration, and storytelling done with heart.